Bridges are, without a doubt, one of engineering's marvels, but they are far from perfect or indestructible, and when they fail, they become a tragedy that can cost lives as well as money. Here are top 5 bridges suddenly collapsed in the world. Watch the video until the end and subscribe to our channel for more such uploads. Here we begin. Number 5. Morbi Suspension Bridge Collapse. A police official said on Monday that the death toll from the Morbi suspension bridge collapse in Gujarat had risen to 130, with rescue workers recovering more bodies from the Machku River. The century-old suspension bridge on the Machku River in Morbi, Gujarat, about 240 kilometers from Gandhinagar, collapsed on Sunday evening, according to officials. After being closed for about 7 months for repairs, the bridge reopened just 4 days ago. Several women and children were reportedly on the hanging bridge when it snapped, plunging them into the water below. The incident happened around 6:30 p.m. when dozens of people were walking on the bridge, which is a popular tourist attraction in Morbi. More than 60 bodies had been fished out, and the rescue operation was still underway. People are being rescued by the fire department, the NDRF, National Disaster Response Force, and private divers. Efforts are being made to break a check dam downstream so that the water level recedes in the stretch where the bridge stood. There is water hyacinth in the river, which is hampering rescue operations, said Kundaria, a Morbi resident whose Lok Sabha constituency includes a portion of the Morbi district. Approximately 70 to 80 people were injured or left stranded in the waters of Machu after falling into the river after the bridge collapsed. Search and rescue efforts are underway. The injured are being rushed to Morbi's government and private hospitals. While the Morbi municipality owns the bridge, the civic body signed a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, earlier this year with Oreva Group, a private firm known for manufacturing clocks, to hand over operations and maintenance for 15 years. Number 4. Ponte Morandi. Ponte Morandi, officially Viaducto Poltavera, was a road viaduct in Genoa, Liguria, Italy, constructed between 1963 and 1967 along the A10 motorway over the Poltavera River. It ran across the Poltavera Valley between Genoa's Sampierdarena and Cornigliano districts. The bridge was popularly known as the Ponte Morandi after its structural designer, engineer Riccardo Morandi. The 210-meter, 690 feet, section of the viaduct collapsed during a rainstorm on 14 August 2018, killing 43 people. The collapse triggered a year-long state of emergency in the Liguria region, extensive structural failure analysis, and widely disparate responsibility allocation. The original bridge's remains were demolished in August 2019. A year later, the Genoa St. George Bridge was inaugurated as a replacement. Number 3. Seongsu Bridge. Dong-A Construction Industrial Company built the Seongsu Bridge over the Han River in Seoul, South Korea. It connects the districts of Seongdong and Gangnam. The cantilever bridge was completed in 1979 and spanned 1,160 meters. The original bridge collapsed early on October 21, 1994, when one of its sections broke off due to a faulty weld in the supporting truss. The accident killed 32 people and injured 17 others. Following the incident, authorities planned to repair the bridge, but structural weaknesses rendered a repair impractical, and it was eventually dismantled and replaced. The new design, which is similar to the original, was completed on August 15, 1997. Number 2. Tacoma Narrows Bridge. The 1940 Tacoma Narrows Bridge, the first Tacoma Narrows Bridge, was a suspension bridge in the United States state of Washington that connected Tacoma and the Kitsap Peninsula across the Puget Sound Strait. It opened to traffic on July 1, 1940, and abruptly collapsed into Puget Sound on November 7, 1940. The bridge's collapse was described as spectacular, and it attracted the attention of engineers, physicists, and mathematicians in the decades since. It was the world's third longest suspension bridge by the main span during its brief existence, trailing only the Golden Gate Bridge and the George Washington Bridge. In September 1938, construction began. because the deck began to move vertically in windy conditions from the time it was built. Construction workers dubbed the bridge galloping jerty. Despite several dampening measures, the motion continued after the bridge opened to the public. On the morning of November 7, 1940, the bridge's main span finally collapsed in 40-mile-per-hour, 64-kilometer-per-hour winds as the deck oscillated in an alternating twisting motion that gradually increased in amplitude until the deck tore apart. The remaining portions of the bridge, including the towers and cables, were dismantled and sold as scrap metal. The United States' entry into World War II delayed efforts to replace the bridge. Still, in 1950, a new Tacoma Narrows Bridge opened in the same location, using the original bridge's tower pedestals and cable anchorages. The bridge section that fell into the water is now used as an artificial reef. The collapse of the bridge had long-term consequences for science and engineering. The event is presented in many physics textbooks as an example of elementary forced mechanical resonance, but it was more complicated in reality. The bridge collapsed because moderate winds produced self-exciting and unbounded aeroelastic flutter for any constant sustained wind speed greater than about 35 miles per hour, 56 kmph. The amplitude of the torsional flutter oscillation would increase continuously, with a negative damping factor, i.e., a reinforcing effect opposite to damping. The collapse accelerated research into bridge aerodynamics and aeroelastics, which influenced the designs of all subsequent long-span bridges. Number 1. I-35W Mississippi River Bridge. The I-35W Mississippi River Bridge, officially known as Bridge 9340, was an 8-lane steel truss arch bridge that carried Interstate 35W across the Mississippi River in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 1/2 mile, 875 meters, downstream from St. Anthony Falls. When it opened in 1967, it was Minnesota's third busiest bridge, carrying 140,000 vehicles per day. On August 1, 2007, it failed catastrophically during the evening rush hour, killing 13 people and injuring 145. The NTSB attributed the collapse to a design flaw, noting that an excessively thin gusset plate ripped along a line of rivets and that additional weight on the bridge at the time contributed to the catastrophic failure. Mutual aid in the 7-county Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area, as well as emergency response personnel, charities, and volunteers, responded immediately. As a result, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, MNDOT, planned its replacement with the I-35W St. Anthony Falls Bridge within a few days of its collapse. The replacement bridge was completed quickly and opened on September 18, 2008. On August 1, 2007, at 6:05 p.m. Central Daylight Time, with rush hour bridge traffic moving slowly through the limited number of lanes, the bridge's central span gave way, followed by the adjoining spans. As a result, the structure and deck collapsed into the river and onto the riverbanks below, with the south section falling 81 feet, 25 meters, eastward. A total of 111 vehicles were involved, sending their occupants and 18 construction workers down to the river or onto its banks as far as 115 feet, 35 meters. Northern sections landed on 3 unoccupied stationary freight cars in a rail yard. An outdoor security camera located at the parking lot entrance of the lower St. Anthony Falls Lock and Dam Control Facility captured sequence images of the collapse. An MNDOT traffic camera facing away from the bridge during the collapse also captured the immediate aftermath. The federal government immediately launched an investigation through the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB. NTSB Chairman Mark Rosenker and several investigators arrived on the scene 9 hours after the collapse. Rosenker stayed in Minneapolis for nearly a week, acting as the government's primary interface with federal, state, and local officials and briefing the press on the investigation's status. On August 2, Mayor R.T. Ryback and Governor Tim Pawlenty declared a state of emergency for Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota. The Minneapolis City Council approved Ryback's declaration the next day and extended it indefinitely. According to White House Press Secretary Tony Snow, Minnesota had not requested a federal disaster declaration as of the morning following the collapse. However, during a visit to the site with Minnesota elected officials on August 4, President Bush pledged his support and announced that United States Secretary of Transportation, U.S. Mary Peters would lead the rebuilding effort. During a closed-door meeting, Ryback and Polity presented the president with detailed requests for assistance. So, what do you think about these sudden bridge collapses in the world? Let us know in the comment section below and subscribe for more.